I remember when the Golden Inn closed last year, and going there with my family one of the last nights they were open, it was packed with all kinds of people, from the regular moonlight hounds to those still wet behind the ears, simply curious about what they might have missed out on. It's not the first community institution to shut its doors, nor will it probably be the last, but on the way to my car after dinner, I found myself humming Big Yellow Taxi, and a disturbing thought hit me in that moment that maybe Chinatown is dying. I mean, what is the future of Chinatown if we can't even preserve what we have here and now? Following the repeal of the Chinese Exclusion Act, Chinatown was still in a pretty tenuous position. It's almost deja vu at this point, but once again, the railway industry was primed to achieve a knockout blow on the Chinese Calgarian community, when in 1963, the CPR and the city of Calgary partnered to redevelop tracks to run through Chinatown. But this time, it was eventually abandoned in the face of widespread public opposition.
It just happened that we've someone found out by accident, like someone from the government and the federal government told somebody in Chinatown, oh, I hear you're going to have a 4-lane highway coming through in the middle of China. No one told us. And so the second generation, some of the grandchildren that could speak English objected, right? And they knew their rights, and they filed opposition to this. And we started working with the people in the city of Calgary.
But only 2 years later, the city came back with an extension of Bow Trail that would have resulted in a 12-lane highway, also running through Chinatown. The Scene-Lock Society was formed as a reactionary measure to this event, and to this day, Scene-Lock Park is the neighborhood's only green space, home to a pair of stone lions, pagodas, and monuments commemorating the Chinese-Canadian experience. By 1973, the city restructured the East-West Bow Trail project, this time strategizing and christening it as the Downtown Penetrator. For the third time in a decade, the Chinese Calgarian community mobilized and reached a historic milestone when 20 hectares of land was made a neighborhood improvement program area, complete with its own community-led Chinatown design brief in 1976. The design brief directly led to the creation of the Chinese Cultural Center in 1992, and the Calgary Chinatown Elderly Citizens Association in 1995, two cornerstones of the community today.
Back in the day, like from the beginning, we've had to lobby and create relationships with politicians, just like any community would. I think that there were definitely more barriers towards the Chinese because of the language barriers at the time. And so what was really important back in the day for us to make advancements was not only having Chinese community members that were willing to stick up and speak for the rights of the community, but also the allies that were in the neighborhood. We had a lot of people who worked at City Hall, who were fellow city councilors, who actually said, you know what, it's not right that we prevent this Chinese community from getting a building permit just because they're Chinese. And so it's thanks to allies and friends of Chinatown that has been able to help us grow over the years, helping us stand up for our rights, helping us vocalize our position. And that's translated, into the modern times, like in the 60s when there was a highway that was going to demolish through Chinatown. The first generation Chinese at that time came together and they fought and they formed the Scene-Lock Society ultimately. But basically they helped lobby the government as well, because don't forget that a lot of the pioneers that came to Canada, although many of them came for scholarly pursuits, many of them were laborers and didn't have literacy, not even in Chinese. And so for many years, I've met somebody who is in their 90s now. When they came at 13 years old, they were the first literate person that could help them write letters and read books and take minutes for their meetings and things like that. We kind of underestimate just how many barriers there was, not only in English literacy, but Chinese literacy as well. And so throughout the time, we walk over to Scene-Lock Park, where we have 3 really great sculptures that were created to help commemorate Chinese history and also the contributions that the Chinese community have made for over 100 years. And so the park that you see today, the beautiful Scene-Lock Park, the Chinese elderly buildings that are supportive living, including subsidized housing for seniors, this is all done due to community effort and volunteer effort. Like, none of it was given to us by the city, none of it was just given to us by the government, and we really had to rally together and lobby to make it happen. And what is a result of that is that 50 years later now, we have these buildings that Chinese seniors can actively age well independently and be healthy while at it. You know, they can go and communicate with the storekeepers, go to their doctor's office, they can take the bus wherever they need to go. They have a big social community here with the different associations. So it's a really great place, a really great model, and a great community to live in.
Teresa Woo-Paw arrived in Calgary in the same time period as the Chinatown design brief.
So I'm Teresa Woo-Paw, and currently I'm the founder and chair of the Action Chinese Canadian Together, the ACT Foundation, as well as the Asian Heritage Foundation, and also the Calgary Arts Foundation. I came to Canada in 1972, which is 50 years ago. So the day we drove into Chinatown through Memorial Drive, we passed by Chinatown. And so it was one of the first places I saw when I arrived Calgary back 50 years ago. And then because my family, even though I'm of immigrant generation in Canada, I'm actually fourth generation in my family that have a presence on this continent. Both of my great-grandfathers came to North America as laborers at the turn of the century. So my family have a long history with North America in Canada. So I'm also sponsored by my uncles and my grandparents. So I have an extensive family in Alberta. So I was connected to various people in the Chinatown Chinese community as soon as I arrived. And then also because of my father, my parents' strong belief in volunteerism and civic engagement, I started volunteering at 16. So I've been involved with the Chinese community at a very early age. And then I spent over 30 years. For about 25 years, I was in Chinatown about 3 to 4 days a week. Because I founded the Chinese Community Service Association, and I was the chair and the volunteer executive director for 26 years, and most of the time was in Chinatown. And I used to run summer programs, kids summer program, Chinese summer program in Chinatown in the 80s. And then I used to conduct school tours for children in the early 1980s. Because of my social work background and my involvement in the community, I was providing 26 years of community service to the community. So I receive calls from people from the community about issues and sharing their concerns. So some of my stories, in particular to Chinatown, I was once asked by a landlord that have property in Chinatown to go up to a house that no longer exists in Chinatown because she delivered a baby by herself in her little house, all by herself, and have not taken the baby to see a doctor for 10 days. So that happened in Chinatown. And then I was involved when the Chinese public school negotiated with some of the groups to get a fair arrangement for their property in Chinatown. So I was also asked to, on behalf of the Chinese community, to present to City Council on the importance of having affordable housing in Chinatown. So that was the very first time the community asked me to actually present to City Council. So I was quite young then, so I cut a lot of my teeth through my work with the Chinese community here in Chinatown.
In early December 2022, City Council greenlit the first strategic planning document for Calgary's Chinatown in over 30 years. The Chinatown Cultural Plan and Area Redevelopment Plan are two documents which provide the first official community-led strategy for the neighbourhood since the Chinatown Design Brief. It's actually a significant move for Chinatowns across Canada, most of whom are dealing with their own existential crises related to urban redevelopment, gentrification, and changing demographics. The project is 6 years in the making and sets a long-term vision for the community's structural development as well as its cultural preservation. Teresa was involved as one of the advisory board members representing the Chinatown community.
The cultural plan is focused on the recognition of the historical and cultural significance of Chinatown, the uniqueness of this place, and to find different ways to honor and continue to recognize the uniqueness. And the area development plan is a planning tool. And the uniqueness about Calgary's Chinatown plan is our area redevelopment plan is informed by the cultural plan. And so that cultural element is integrated into the city planning, of the city. Now, the area redevelopment plan will provide guidance and directions on future development, redevelopment, preservation of the area. It will provide, the needed consistency and certainty to both the community, developers, and decision makers. So I think that's important because I think that have been part of the challenge in the past decades, because this is the first time in 30 years that the city is have made revisions to the Chinatown area redevelopment plan. And so there's no guarantee, right? But then it is providing more clarity, more certainty and consistency. And I think that is giving a higher level of assurance for the community. So I think so that we have two plans that I think that's working together that would help to preserve the cultural significance of the community.
Part of the Tomorrow's Chinatown plan included renaming James Short Park.
It is significant because I think it is it's a form of redress, right, to the community, and it's consistent with I think the recent change in the city of Calgary, with their declaration and expressed commitment to become an anti-racist organization. What also surfaced is the inherent diversity and complexity of all communities. So the Chinese community is almost 10% of the Calgary population. It's 1.8 million people in Canada. So people should understand and expect that we are diverse and complex. So we don't look at everything through the same lens. So when the Tomorrow's Chinatown advisory with the city work on the renaming, that we have we responded to a diverse a diversity of views. So some in the Chinese community were very uncomfortable about this renaming exercise, and some of the things that would be raised during this renaming, which is to talk about the issue of race and racism. In Canadian society, up until very recently, it is something that many people feel very uncomfortable to talk about, because it is perceived as bad, it is perceived as something that would conjure difficult feelings and reactions, lots of discomfort from both sides, the dominant culture as well as the racialized communities. So it's natural that that the Chinese community also have certain elements, a certain part of the community that were very uncomfortable to talk about that subject matter. And then we have, on the other spectrum, Chinese Canadians, advocates who hold the view that we have to evolve with, I think, a new understanding on issues, and also ways to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, in 2022. So we have to help people understand that this kind of prominent presence of people whose actions have harmed people still are negatively impacting people on a daily basis. And while change is sometimes difficult, we have to sometimes make an effort to make changes so that we can be a more truly inclusive society. And we also, and part of the change is to become comfortable and accept that there are different ways for us to learn about history in a way that's not harmful to the negatively impacted people. So we can always learn about different aspects of James Short in museums, from history books, and many other sources. But it doesn't have to be, be so prominently present, especially next to Chinatown.
The new name that has been adopted is Harmony Park.
That was a very positive experience on the committee because we had an opportunity, we were presented an opportunity to put forward recommendations and the deliberations amongst the advisory committee was actually the result of the new name. And this new name, I believe, is a very good name. I mean, it didn't come from me, but fully supported because the word wall in Cantonese or he in Mandarin, it have many different meanings. It means peaceful. It means integrate, interact, and it means respecting differences, but still working together. So it have very complex, multi-layer, multi-dimensional meaning. But at the end of the day, it's about harmony. It's about respecting, accepting our differences, but still work together in harmony. And I think that's the kind of society that Canada is striving to become, one that is accepting of our diversity and differences, but still see that as a strength and work and build this country together. So I think it's a very appropriate name. I think that reflects the Chinese culture. It reflects the kind of hopes and vision that we have for this country.
So I have to admit that I'm still kind of conflicted about Chinatown. On one hand, it has so much nostalgic appeal to both my parents and I and people of our generation who continually visit restaurants, grocery stores, video rental shops, the cultural center, and other small businesses owned and operated by people who look like us and speak the same language. But on the other hand, I was born in the suburbs and spent most of my life surrounded by people who don't look like me and speak exclusively English. Chinatowns were an ethnic enclave at the start. And the fact that we're more progressive today doesn't really change the fact that there's still so much misunderstanding of Chinese culture and people in the West. And the fact that they were segregated is a large reason for this disconnect.
Sometimes I think the disconnect between our public institutions and this very unique, important community. Up to 2 years ago, I think that disconnect was still there. So in the 80s, we had to save that affordable housing unit In the 90s, I actually headed, I was one of the people who headed an effort to stop having a casino built in Chinatown. So I worked with the residents and to help them to express their concerns and needs to council. And one of that effort was a petition signed by over 700 people. So that was in the 90s. And then in 2000, I think that there was another issue. And then in 2016, we had to express our concern about the development of the 3 towers in the shrinking Chinatown. So why is it that every decade we had to fight for the survival of Chinatown? And that is because of the disconnect between the institution and the community. So I think that is what I see as common over the decades. So every decade since the 1970s, we had to fight for the survival of Chinatown. And without those efforts, we may not have a Chinatown, or we may have a 4th Chinatown in Calgary.
Ronald Lee alludes to this back and forth relationship between Chinatown on one side and the city and developers on the other.
It's kind of disheartening when, after a few years, we have different city councilors saying, let's get rid of Chinatown. And and that happened in the 80s with the booming oil patch. They tried to misappropriate land here. And we have to realize that Chinatown is a designated neighborhood. It's a designated neighborhood, just like Arbor Lake or Mount View or Kensington. It is a neighborhood, and what happens over time, due to short-term outlook, sometimes there are certain unscrupulous developers that try to go around the zoning laws here and try to do spot rezoning. And spot rezoning is you can redevelop, have an exemption. And they tried that a number of years ago here, and they wanted to build a 29-story apartment business complex in Calgary. That's to create better density, was needed more density in the downtown core, which was a little contradictory because Chinatown is only 4 blocks and it has 1,400 people living here in 14 blocks. It's the highest density of any place in Calgary, about 3 times the density of any place in Calgary. And the argument by City Council is we need greater density. And our argument was there's already, a 20% vacancy rate in all the high-rise apartments around here and all the buildings. Why would you want to do it?
I think that I think one of the issues that many Chinatowns are struggling with is the unique aspects of Chinatown commerce. Gone are the mom and pop shop, the small family-run business, and the difficulty for those groups to survive today. So I think that's a difference in terms of the business model in Chinatown. I think very unfortunate, we did not have that foresight, was how vibrant Chinatown used to be when we had the Chinese schools in Chinatown. And people start to see the challenge of that because of the parking. People were double parking, triple parking. I mean, now I see those as the great times, but at that time it was a problem for everyone that we have, people double parking, triple parking to drop the kids off to Chinese school, and then the parents would actually do things in Chinatown. That's why it was so vibrant until the Chinese school, all the Chinese schools moved outside of Chinatown. So that's another physical difference. But I think one major difference is I think it happened about 2 years ago when the resurgence of anti-Chinese, anti-Asian racism emerged as part of the COVID pandemic, when a lot of the social inequities surfaced, when people became more aware about racial discrimination because of Black Lives Matter and anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Asian racism. So really what have happened the last 2.5 years have been quite extraordinary, which also led to people's treatment and attention on Chinatown. By and large, in promising ways. But for someone like myself, who have seen this kind of work twice, 2 rounds before, I welcome this development with some reservation.
With everything I've learned about and heard so far, that's honestly a fair point. So where do we go from here? Things still seem uncertain, and now that the cultural plan has been passed, are things okay? I think it's time to have a conversation about what the future of Chinatown could be, so that we can get a head start in the right direction.